Welcome, everyone. I'm Karen Merrill and delighted to present today's Lunch and Learn. During our time together, we're going to discuss involvement and engagement, and more specifically, how being involved and connected to your work and home life has been found to be a critical part of living a happy, thriving life. So if you're someone who finds themselves going through life on autopilot, this webinar will provide some encouraging and helpful information that'll help you change your engagement for the better. Next slide. So today we're going to tackle a lot related to this concept, and we'll start by discussing the importance of engagement in our lives. Learn about character strengths and how to utilize them to increase our engagement. Examine the concept of flow, the mechanisms behind it, and how it promotes happiness. Explore your energy and how to increase it to boost performance through intention and daily rituals. And learn how to engage in relationships to lead happier, more productive lives, not only for you, but for those you engage with. Next. So lots of research. Engaged employees are 87% less likely to leave an organization. Companies with engaged workers outperform disengaged workers by 202%. Happy employees have 31% higher productivity, 37% higher sales, and 3 times more creativity. In terms of how this boils down to our daily lives, the more engaged you are at work, the happier you'll be. It seems like a no-brainer when we say it like that, but actually, most companies work under the assumption that finding success at work would actually increase productivity, boost morale, and lead to engagement. But a new wave of thinking coming out of the concept of positive psychology supports that, in fact, engagement comes first, with success, productivity, and performance following as a consequence of the happiness and fulfillment that comes with being engaged. Next. So, character strengths are the positive parts of our personality that impact how we think, feel, and behave, and are the keys to our better self. And this is coming out of the VIA Institute, which actually stands for Values in Action. Next. So how does this actually work exactly? Why do engaged employees make happy, productive, successful employees? It comes down to brain chemistry, and it's hard to ignore the science. Engagement creates positive emotions, which leads to the rise in the neurotransmitters serotonin and dopamine. You may have heard those terms. These are the chemicals in the brain that not only make us feel good, but also increase connection and learning in our brains, making it easier for us to retain and organize new information for longer, for faster retrieval, to be able to think more innovatively, improve problem-solving skills, and analyze complex information. Next. So we need to start with our strengths, help identify what our strengths are. What do people frequently compliment you on? What aspects of your life are you most proud of? What skills have you learned more easily? When do you feel most like yourself, that you're really kind of in tune with your core being? Next. To get more exact, there's actually a survey you can take. Over the past few decades, scientists have worked to create a classification of what they call human strengths and virtues. They've identified 24 different strengths, which we all possess in varying degrees. Some may come more naturally to others, and some we may use more often. But all of these strengths exist within each of us and are available to use if we want to nurture and grow that strength. So in your spare time, you can take the strengths quiz. Check out the quiz on psychologist Martin Siegelman's Authentic Happiness website. The survey will rate you on 24 signature strengths. There's a short quiz of 24 questions and a longer one of 240, and it's free. So when identifying your greatest strengths, think of a few situations and experiences that fully engross you. For instance, I love reading, both fiction and things on psychology. I love doing EAP counseling and presenting workshops on different topics. So if I think about what traits those correlate to, I would say that reflects my curiosity, a love of learning, and hopefully creativity. I think that this expresses my real me, and so I call them my signature strengths. You can discover your own by taking the survey and clicking on the link on the website. Next. So if we call our signature strengths our superpowers, then we need to put them to work. Fostering your resilience means putting your strengths to work and letting them provide benefits in various aspects. So try some of the following tips to help integrate them into your daily life. Tell strength stories. Think about one or two strengths and tell a story about how you use them. Think about your strengths in terms of problem solving and how they came in handy. Use something called strength spotting. When you see a colleague, a friend, or family member demonstrating a particular strength, name it. Discuss what you observed and share your appreciation. Use it in new ways. Pick one of the strengths on that chart that aren't what you consider your signature strength and cultivate it so that you grow them in a greater degree. Next, use those superpowers to increase your performance. When it comes to achievement and our performance in work, one of the most common obstacles we face is our automatic tendency to focus on our weaker areas and try to strengthen those, rather than focus on our strengths and try to utilize those in more aspects in our life. For example, you may not be as strong as writing reports as someone else, but are excellent at projects and presentations. Because of this, you might think you should put your time and energy into improving your writing skills. So it may seem counterintuitive, but research from this area on positive psychology suggests that focusing on your strengths is more productive than trying to improve a lesser strength. In terms of your overall performance, you're better off accepting your relative weaknesses and concentrate your energy on identifying and using your strengths. Think about it in terms of where have you persevered in the past? What strengths did you use to make that happen? How can you use those signature strengths to achieve challenging situations? So it's an interesting concept and one that we don't necessarily think of. But this theory of positive psychology is to focus on our strengths. I still think that if we like a challenge, then we can try to cultivate other values on that list and try to make those strengths as well. Next. So now we're going to move on to the concept of flow. which we've all heard about. It's something that we experience here and there, a feeling when you hear people say that they're really in the zone, focused, energized, completely immersed in that moment's activity. So much so that you feel like you lose track of time. It's the loss of consciousness that happens when you're completely absorbed in an activity, whether that activity is intellectual, professional, or physical. And that flow activity is usually described as enjoyable or exhilarating. So, positive psychology co-founder and researcher, we'll call him Michaeli C, because I can't begin to pronounce that last name, has been researching the field of happiness for decades and has led him to conclude that happiness is an internal state of being and that flow is crucial to creating genuine happiness. He says that the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limit in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. Next. So the key features of flow: distorted perception of time, a lack of being self-conscious, being totally absorbed, and there's an intense focus on the present moment. While we have all experienced these features in a flow state, we probably haven't stopped to ask how and why that state occurs. I know I haven't, but neuropsychology is just now beginning to research what is happening in the brain during this experience to better explain how it happens and how it's related to happiness. Overall, the biggest finding is that the state of flow is actually associated with decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex. Now, you may have heard that this is the part of the brain that's responsible for memory, organization of emotional responses, decision making, and planning. So, this temporary inactivation of the prefrontal area is what creates the feeling of distortion of time, loss of consciousness, and an increased creativity and present mindfulness, because we really have temporarily shut off that other function. Next. So research shows us that flow is highly correlated with happiness, better health, and life satisfaction. And that the more we experience flow, the more we increase our sense of concentration, creativity, self-esteem, and performance. Reaching a state of flow is finding the right balance between your skill level and your challenge. If your skill level is not able to meet the demands of an extraordinary challenge or what you perceive as such, you're stretching too far. And then we become anxious. It creates an anxious state. On the other hand, if your skill level is far beyond the challenge, then you're going to be bored and you won't get to that sense of flow. Next. So the key is to find your sweet spot, that kind of interacting arc between anxiety and boredom. Flow occurs when we find the right amount of challenge that stretches our skill and also doesn't make us anxious. Our skills are maximized and we're slightly challenged. Next. So a Harvard Business Review tells us that to reach a state of flow, we need to create an environment that supports uninterrupted focus, allows us to focus. And based on the science of stamina, we now better understand how individuals can engage in ways that significantly increase their capacity to perform at their peak, and ultimately increase opportunities to reach a state of flow. It's about managing our energy, not about managing our time. Next. We've all been there. Some days we just can't seem to drink enough coffee, and other days we feel completely energized and productive. Tony Schwartz and Catherine McCarthy's review, entitled Manage Your Energy, Not Your Time, shares 4 simple pillars to manage our life better, focusing on how to cultivate more energy instead of obsessing over our time. We're not going to get more time, and longer days at the office don't work because time is a limited resource. Energy is a different story. Defined in physics as the capacity to work, energy comes from 4 main well springs in human beings: the body, emotions, mind, and spirit. In each, energy can be expanded and renewed by establishing specific rituals, behaviors that are intentionally practiced and scheduled with the goal of making them unconscious and automatic as quickly as possible. Next. So going through these 4 pillars and renewing our personal energy, looking first at physical energy. Enhance your sleep hygiene by setting an earlier bedtime and reducing alcohol use. Reduce stress by engaging in cardiovascular activity at least 3 times a week, and strength training at least once a week. Think about eating small meals and light snacks every 3 hours as a way of renewing physical energy. Learn to notice signs of imminent energy flagging, including restlessness, yawning, hunger, and difficulty concentrating, giving you a clue that maybe you need to do something else. Take brief but regular breaks away from your desk to reoxygenate yourself, at the most at 90 or 120-minute intervals throughout the day. Next. So moving on to our emotional energy. Diffuse negative emotions, irritability, impatience, anxiety, insecurity through deep abdominal breathing. Fuel positive emotions in yourself and those around you by regularly expressing appreciation to others in detailed, specific terms through notes, emails, calls, or conversations. Look at upsetting situations through new lenses. Adopt a reverse lens to ask, what would the other person in this conflict say? And how they might be right? Use a long lens to ask, how will I likely view this situation in 6 months? Employ a wide lens to ask, how can I grow and learn from this situation? Next. In looking at mental energy, reduce distractions. Reduce interruptions by performing high concentration tasks away from phones and emails. Respond to voice mails and emails at designated times during the day and not feel like you need to respond immediately, which will rob you of energy. Every night, identify what went well that day, and then think about the most important challenge for the next day and make it your first priority when you come into the office or come to your desk. Next. Your spiritual energy. Identify your sweet spot activities, those that give you a feeling of effectiveness, absorption, and fulfillment. Find ways to do more of these. For example, Spend the last 15 minutes of your workday processing the activities of the day as you begin to transition to the evening to connect to your family when you're with them. Live your core values. Take some time to identify what they are and make sure they're in sync with how you interact at work and at home. Next, in Schwartz's book, The Power of Full Engagement, he recommends that we think about managing our energy, not our time, in this way. Rather than treating our life and businesses as a marathon, Schwartz advises we treat them as sprints that are followed by a critical recovery period. He discusses the inevitable big projects and deadlines we face that are a lot like sprints. But what's most important in tackling these energy draining projects is that we build in equal parts of recovery. Consider creating a project timeline that includes bursts of intense focus followed by equal parts of rest and recovery. You'll be amazed how this is not only boosts your productivity, but leaves you feeling much less drained upon completion. Next. So we're going to kind of shift now to more specifically engagement at work and the concept of high quality relationships. These are termed as short-term, didactic, and positive interactions where there's expressed mutual positive regard, trust, and active engagement on both sides. We typically experience these with the people we work with. While you might not know these people on a deep level, they can, in fact, significantly impact your happiness through improved mood, decreased stress and anxiety that helps boost performance and workplace learning. Think about the last time you had a grueling meeting or really long shift. If anything was going to lift you up, it would probably be a coworker or superior reaching out to express support or compassion. Next. Besides just protecting us from the consequences of being lonely, relationships in the workplace provide many other benefits. Increased well-being, enhanced physiological resources, greater cognitive function, increased trust, increased learning, resilience, commitment, engagement, creativity, shared knowledge. But here's the challenge we face today, and this is really important. How we engage with one another is changing as the technology in our lives make it easier to disengage. Even at work, you find yourself sending emails and texts to the person in the office next door instead of popping in for a quick chat. And if there happens to be that person in your office who loves to pop in, you may find yourself getting annoyed, thinking, why didn't he just send that in an email? So what can we do? What can we learn about HQCs to make sure we're maximizing our engagement and reaping benefits? Next. Take a look at these 4 boxes, 4 pathways to building HQRs. First, respectful engagement. Engaging the other in a way that sends a message of value and worth. Be present and attentive to others. Listen and communicate affirmatively. Task enabling, helping facilitate another person's success. Engage in teaching opportunities and provide assistance on tasks when asked. Encourage and support mentoring and coaching. Nurture others through role modeling and emotional support. Advocate for others. Trusting. That is, convey to others that you believe that they are dependable and will meet expectations. These strategies look like being vulnerable, being open to being authentic, being consistent, seek input and feedback, delegate, and playing. That is having fun with others, because moments of play are moments of exploration, often building knowledge and trust. Strategies might include team building, volunteer days, having playful spaces at work. It's also important to incorporate actions and behaviors that promote the well-being of others. The term altruism was actually coined in the 1800s to explain the concept of the practice of concern for someone else's happiness and welfare without any expectation of reciprocity, reward, or compensation. It's about finding ways to engage in your life with selflessness and the benefits of others. Next. So, of course, the benefits of selfless actions on those you're engaging with will be evident. But there's a component of altruism that proves it can be extremely beneficial to you as well. More and more, research suggests that practicing altruism enhances your emotional, physical, relational well-being. It's also crucial to stable and healthy communities, as well as the being of our species at all. So it increases happiness, promotes good health, social connection, performance, connectedness, and it's contagious. Altruism is more than just you and your actions. It has a ripple effect. Many times when you do something nice for someone else, then they feel your generosity and pay it forward and show more generosity to others. Next. So lots of sources have been called upon to put this webinar together, and you might look to see if there are any of these titles that look like something that you might explore further. We presented a lot of information today. The webinar will be available to you, and I would challenge you to review it and commit to picking one or two of the suggestions to help build your involvement and engagement.